Hello everyone and welcome back to my minimalist cooking videos. Today I have the classic Chinese American takeout dish that everyone loves, broccoli beef. Not only is this affordable, it's simple to make and really quick as well. The best part is we'll only need one pot. So let's get started. Let's start with our vegetables. Nothing scary here, garlic, ginger, onions, broccoli, everything's available at your local grocery store. Also, the recipe is down below in the description. As with most Asian American inspired dishes, this recipe starts with garlic. I'm going to be using 2 cloves of garlic here today, and we need to begin by getting the skins off. This is accomplished by using the back of your knife and a nice firm smack from the back of your hand to separate the garlic from the outside wrapper. The skins fall away easily from the garlic, allowing us to continue on. Notice when I'm smacking the back of the knife with my hand, my fingers are curled away from the blade. Just in case there's any slippage, you don't want to cut yourself. Begin by chopping the garlic into matchstick pieces, turning them 90 degrees, and then giving them a really nice dice. Place your minced garlic onto a small plate as we get ready to prepare our next ingredient, which is ginger. Here I've got a piece about the size of my thumb, which I will be preparing for the dish today. We need to start by getting the skin off. This can be accomplished in one of 2 ways. You can do it as I'm doing here, with the knife and cutting small pieces around the edge, or you can use a spoon to scrape it off. Either will work quite well. Cut the ginger into thin rounds and then matchstick pieces, as you can see. Turn those 90 degrees and give them a really good dice. You're looking for a mince the same size as the garlic. Once you have a fine mince, we're going to place the ginger onto our plate next to the minced garlic. This is going to make everything go much smoother and faster when we get to the actual cooking part of the dish. Next up, we have our white onion. Begin by trimming a little bit off of each edge and pulling the exterior skin off. With the flat face of the onion against the cutting board, make thin radial cuts along the entire length of the onion. This will allow us to break them apart into nice slivers that will cook evenly and quickly in the dish. This is exactly what you want. Place your cut onion next to your ginger on the plate, and we move on to our green onion. Trim off the roots of the onions and throw those away. Then make thin slices along the entire length. Here you will see me discard the last 2 to 3 inches of the green part of the onion. They were a little dried out and I didn't think were going to go well in the dish. And just like the other aromatics, we are going to place the green onion onto the plate. Here you can see that we have our garlic, ginger, white onion, and green onion. This will round out our aromatics. And now for the broccoli portion of the broccoli beef recipe. Here I have 2 rather large heads of broccoli that I'll be using. This recipe made enough for 2 people to eat a full meal. It looks like quite a lot, but once it's prepared and cooked down, it will reduce in size. Remove the clusters of florets from the stalk before cutting the broccoli into bite-sized pieces. Cut the broccoli florets straight down the stem. By leaving a good portion of the stem attached to each piece of the broccoli, this will help prevent it from falling apart in the dish as it cooks. Finish cutting up the rest of the broccoli and place it onto a plate just like you did the aromatics. With all of our vegetables prepared, we can move on to the beef. We will be cutting our beef and soaking it in a delicious marinade before we cook it. Let's get started. I am using a sirloin steak today in this dish. Other good options would be a strip steak, a flat iron steak, or even a flank steak that is prepared correctly. Essentially, any cut of steak that you would cook, put onto a plate, and eat exactly as is would work well in this dish. Regardless of the cut that you're using, you want to begin by trimming off all the excess fat that you can. A little bit of fat certainly won't hurt anything. You just want to avoid large pieces of fat. They won't cook out in this dish. In order to make the best dish possible, it's very critical that you cut the steak in the correct way. So let's go ahead and take a look at a bit more detail of how you cut this meat correctly. The first step is to identify the way that the grain of the meat runs. These are going to look like long fibers when you look closely at the meat. Take note of the way that the fibers run in this piece of steak, as I'm showing by moving my fingers. You are going to cut 90 degrees to the way these fibers run in very thin pieces. These thin slices against the grain really make a tender final product. Skipping this step will create quite long, chewy fibers that aren't appetizing. Looking at this one more time, the meat fibers run this direction. Therefore, I'm going to cut 90 degrees to the meat fibers in thin slices. Your target size for your slices are about 1/8 of an inch or 3 millimeters thick, not any thicker. Once we have all of our steak sliced up, we need to marinate it. Begin building your marinade with soy sauce. Sprinkle 1 to 2 teaspoons of soy sauce over the meat. Following the soy sauce, we will be using cornstarch or corn flour. Sprinkle the corn flour over the meat in an even layer. And now I'm going to massage the corn flour into the steak juice and soy sauce. This will create a coating on each one of the pieces that will brown up really nicely when we cook it later on. You want to have your pieces separate so they're not in a big lump. If you don't get this, you can add a little bit more corn flour if needed. Now that our vegetables are prepared, our meat is marinating, we have one thing left to do, and that's make the sauce before we can start bringing this dish together and cooking it. Let's get started. We are going to begin building our sauce in a cup. These first two ingredients need to go in this order. We begin by adding the water to the cup, followed by the cornstarch. This portion of the sauce actually makes a slurry that will thicken the entire sauce once cooked. Add the cornstarch to the water and mix very, very well. You want to make sure that there are no lumps. Make sure your slurry is completely dissolved before continuing on. Next up, we have soy sauce. Measure out your soy sauce and add it directly to your slurry mixture. This will give us our salty component to the sauce. Next, we have oyster sauce. This will help provide a little bit of sweetness as well as a rich, deep edamame flavor. It's kind of thick, so it needs to be mixed in really well. Oyster sauce is extremely popular in Asian cooking and makes a foundation for a number of different sauces in different dishes. It's readily available and easy to source. Next up is sugar. This adds sweetness, of course, and helps balance out the sauce. Here I'm using Demerara sugar, however, you can feel free to use white sugar or brown sugar if you wish. And our final ingredient for the sauce, sesame oil. This adds a deep, rich, delicious nutty flavor, but you only want to use a very little bit. Do not go overboard because too much could ruin the dish. With all of our ingredients in the cups, we need to mix this extremely well. You're trying to dissolve the sugar as well as mix all the ingredients very well. The overall sauce will be relatively thick, as you can see here. That's exactly what we want, so let's move on. To begin the cooking process, I have my frying pan on high heat with boiling water. We're going to add the broccoli into the boiling water just for a few moments so that it can cook, and then we're going to take it out and put it in a cold water bath. This is called blanching and shocking. By doing this, we are going to par cook the broccoli. This is important because we want the broccoli to be slightly cooked, however, not totally cooked through. This is important because we're going to be using a very high heat to fry the rest of the dish later. If we didn't par cook the broccoli ahead of time, it would not get completely done in the stir-fried dish at the end. I'm testing the broccoli here with a fork by skewering it. You're looking for actually quite a bit of resistance. You still want the center to be crunchy. Again, we are only par cooking the broccoli at this point. We do not want to fully cook it. The total cooking time is going to be about 30 seconds to 1 minute in the boiling water. Any more than that, it will be overcooked. Once the broccoli has been par cooked to our liking, we need to withdraw it from the water as quickly as possible. Traditionally, you would take the broccoli directly out and put it into an ice water bath. I do not have ice water where I live, so I'm going to go ahead and just run cold, cool drinking water over the top to prevent it from continuing to cook. Do not skip this step. If you do not cool down the broccoli by either running it under cool tap water or placing it into an ice bath, the broccoli will continue to cook as it sits there. What we want to do is stop the cooking process completely at this point. Once cooled down, place your cold broccoli off to the side before we continue on to finish cooking the dish. And finally, we are ready to stir fry this dish. Begin by placing about 2 tablespoons of oil into a frying pan over high heat. As I said, this is a one-pot dish, and as you can see, I am using the same frying pan to stir fry this dish as I cooked the broccoli in before. While my oil is coming up to temperature, I want to talk to you guys about the speed of this dish. Even though I'm slowed down taking my time to detail as I record, this dish only took me 37 minutes from start to having dinner on my plate. You can expect to spend about 30 minutes from start to finish in making this delicious dish. That is almost as fast as you could order takeout. With my oil screaming hot, we are going to add the sliced beef to the pot. It's sizzling away, and that's exactly what you want to see. This dish is cooked over a very, very high heat for a short period of time. Once you add your beef, you want to make sure to take a few moments here and break it apart. You want to get as much surface area in contact with that hot oil as possible. The quicker that you can break this up and get it against that hot oil, the faster this will cook. Also, the more browning and better texture you will get from a finished product. After about 45 seconds of cooking, the beef has cooked completely on one side. At this point, I'm going to go ahead and add in my aromatics. Start by adding the garlic, the ginger, and the sliced white onions to the pot. However, reserve the sliced green onions for later. This is where all of your prep time pays off. By getting all of our vegetables sliced and ready to go without any question, this dish will come together in minutes. It is literally that quick. When cooking over such a high heat, it is very, very important to keep everything in your pan constantly moving. If you let it sit for too long, it can start burning. Once you've added your vegetables to the pan, it really won't take much longer at all. It takes about 45 seconds for the beef to sear off on the first side. With the added mass of the vegetables, it's going to take about 1.5 to 2 minutes to stir fry the beef on the other side as well as get your vegetables nice and done. We're not looking to make really soft vegetables. They should actually have a little bit of a bite, a little bit crispiness left in them. That is exactly what you're looking for. And if you found this video helpful, please like, subscribe, leave a comment below, and make sure to hit that bell icon so you're notified every time we release videos like this. Don't forget to check out the other minimalist cooking videos that we have on our channel as well. You will love them. As you keep everything in your pan moving constantly as to not burn, this only takes a few minutes to come together. The vegetables are still a little bit crispy, exactly as you want them, and the meat is completely cooked. Therefore, we are going to go ahead and add our sauce. Make sure to give that sauce a nice mix before you add it back in. Some of the cornstarch could have settled out, or some of the sugar. You want to make sure everything is well integrated before we add it to this really, really hot pan. The sauce will come together and thicken almost immediately upon hitting the heat, so if there are any lumps in your sauce, you really won't have a chance to work them out. That's why it's so important that you make a nice, smooth slurry to begin with and follow the steps that I've given you. This is what the meat and vegetables will look like completely cooked. Note that the onions still retain their shape because they are not cooked all the way through. You're just looking to par cook them and have a little bit of bite left. That's exactly what you want right before you add your sauce. With our vegetables and beef cooked to our liking, we are going to add the sauce. Again, it's quite thick, so you want to make sure to use your spoon and scoop out everything into that pan and don't waste a drop. Since the slurry mixture is part of the sauce itself, the second that it hits that hot pan, it will begin to thicken, and that's exactly what you're looking for. Make sure to shake it around to give even heat and add the broccoli into the beef mixture. Because the broccoli was par cooked earlier, at this point we're adding it to the pot pretty much so that it can be heated through one more time and get coated in that delicious sauce. This is why it's so critical to have your vegetables prepared, your meat marinating, your sauce ready, because once you actually start applying heat to this dish, it takes only a few minutes to cook. It is actually fast food if you look at it that way. I'm going to go ahead and stir the broccoli really well into the beef and vegetable mixture. That way it can become heated through and get coated in that sauce that we created. And there's one more thing we need to finish off this dish. The green onions. I'm sure you thought I forgot, but I didn't. We want to add those in right at the end so they can retain their crispiness and that really nice fresh spring flavor that they bring. It adds another dimension to the dish that is really, really traditional. Simply add it on top and stir it through. The heat of the dish will cook it just enough so that it becomes nice and soft when it hits the plate. You have two options when it comes to serving this dish. You can place it onto a plate and serve it up as a main entree as part of a larger dinner. However, the way that I prefer to eat it as well as serve it to my family is by placing a nice heaping scoop over some steamed white rice. And that's it, guys. It's that simple. One pot and you have this delicious, rich, classic Chinese American dish that everybody loves. Not only is it cheaper than going to takeout, but it tastes better and can be prepared from start to dinner in only 30 minutes. Thank you so much for watching.